Big headline from a couple weeks ago. Let's do it.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Our headline comes to us from USA Today. This should be USA 2 weeks ago. Really? This is written by Joey Garrison. Joey writes, credit card late fees capped at $8 under Biden crackdown on junk fees. Most credit card late fees will be capped at $8 under the Biden administration's latest move targeting so-called junk fees. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau finalized a rule opposed by the banking industry, believe it or not, Tuesday that will close a loophole to slash late fees charged by credit card companies from an average of $32 to $8, which the agency projects will save $220 annually for 45 million. 45 million Americans are going to save $220 a year, OG, on this move.
And then they'll just raise the interest rate by 0.25%, and all that $200 will cost them $400 of extra interest. But hey, there's no late fees.
The banking industry finds a way to get their money. Is that what you're saying?
I bet that's the sum total of this. I'm not entirely sure that JP Morgan or American Express or Capital One are just going to go, yeah, you know that $40 billion that we get in revenue every year from late fees? Nah, you're right. We actually don't need that. We're good.
They're also doing the same on overdraft fees. Banks won't be able to exceed their losses under the new rule. The CFPB has not finalized an amount, but is exploring overdraft fees capped at $3, $6, $7, or $14 plus 50 cents per transaction. The overdraft rule currently under review, so we should have something there soon. Rob Nichols, president and CEO of the American Bankers Association, said today's flawed final rule will not only reduce competition, increase the cost of credit, but will also result in more late payments, higher debt, lower credit scores, and reduced credit access for those who need it most. Let's walk through these. I don't understand reduced competition.
Well, I mean, arguably, if there's not enough money in it to have market participants, if there's not enough revenue, right? Because if you're running a bank, if you're running a lending institution, one of the things you're counting on is people aren't going to pay. And part of your money is the fact that they're not paying, and you can go charge them more money on their money.
That's what I thought.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's laughable. Number one, increase the cost of credit.
Yeah, I agree.
This is where he actually gets it right, though. So, Mr. Nichols, we disagree on part of this, but part of it we do. Increase the cost of credit, which to your point, OG, banks are going to find a way to recoup that by charging you in other areas. It will result in more late payments. We've already seen this. If there isn't any severe slap on the wrist, the chance that you might do it again. Now, I remember the early 90s when I was having big financial trouble, and Bank of America's $40 late fees kept just killing me, absolutely killing me. So I understand that. I totally understand that reducing this to $8 could have helped me save my bacon, but it still, OG, didn't solve the final problem, which was this: higher debt, lower credit scores, and reduced credit access for those who need it most. What I truly needed to do wasn't to
have more credit so that you could have a better utilization.
Open up a new card.
I needed to solve my credit card problem. I needed to get rid of my credit card problem. I needed to increase my income. I needed to devote more income to paying off my debt and building the emergency fund and getting rid of this altogether. So while I think this could be a Band-Aid, I don't know that it's going to solve America's credit problems.
This is just simply one of these issues of, you pick up one end of a stick, you get the other type of thing. I mean, I think it's reasonable to assume that banks are not going to just lie down and say, cool, we don't have 40 billion of revenue anymore. All right, fine. That's okay with us. They'll just figure out a way to whether it's make your credit card $10 a month of it's a subscription fee. I mean, that's all the rage these days. So why would credit cards not have a subscription fee to have a credit card? There's 1,000 ways for them to recoup this money, and it's going to come out of mostly people who can't afford to have it. So it's just repurposing those dollars, is my guess, is how that's going to happen. But the bigger problem is exactly what you're talking about. If if there's not enough of an incentive to not do it, the risk that you run as an individual is you go, well, whatever, I'll just pay late. I'll just take this $8 fee or whatever the number is, because who cares? It's only $8. But that's not solving the problem. And the extra downstream effects of that, of having, a lower credit score, it affects your car insurance and homeowners insurance, and it affects other things in your life because of the lower amounts of pain to having the debt, if that makes sense, right? Like to your point, it doesn't hurt as bad. So because it doesn't hurt as bad, you're not going to do as much about it. And there's other ancillary effects that are going to have, negative effects, I should say, because of those things. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any increase in interest rates or anything like that, because exactly what you just said, there's less pain. So people are going to let their balances just slowly increase because there's not a real motivation to pay down that debt. So I also feel like this is one of those headlines that you see typically in election years, where it looks great. The headline looks great. And hey, we did this for the average Joe. Sorry, Joe. But the reality of it is that it's not nearly as big a splash as you think it is when you just dig a little bit.
Yeah, but for those people rolling their eyes, Doug, thinking this is election year politics, I heard them going after late fees 2 years ago. So this is part of this.
Sure.
I mean,
but why did it hit
part
now?
of this program, I believe, includes these tacked on resort fees when there's no resort, right? That one always cracks me up
the junk fees is what they call them, right? Like the junk fees. And don't get me wrong here. I don't think that, we should have late fees at $30. I was quite happy to bank at a bank that doesn't have overdraft fees and account fees and all that sort of stuff. And I was pretty successful in even just asking them to eliminate the minimum for an account that has higher interest. I'm like, why do I have to have 20 grand in that account to get the higher interest? Can I just have the account? Why don't you just give me the higher interest? Like, why do we have to have a minimum balance? So you can negotiate a lot of those things. But if you're hoping that the $30 late fee is going to your point, Joe, save your bacon, it may once, and kind of help that spiral from not happening. But the bigger issue is you got to figure out a way to not have credit card debt.
I think there's a way for us to zoom out on this, which is banks, to your point, are going to cover their bacon. They're going to make sure no matter what the ruling is that they make money. We need to do the same thing, right? We need to think of ourselves as the CFO of our personal financial situation. And I'll tell you a very simple hack, we'll call it, that I taught clients, used myself to get over this, worked very effectively, was try to make however big a payment you can, but to avoid the minimum fee, which is now going to be smaller, but still $8 isn't nothing. I can spend that $8 on something else. Set up an automatic minimum payment to come out of your checking account so that I can't tell you the number of times I was able to help people solve this problem just very quickly by setting up the minimum auto payment so that you didn't have to remember. I mean, how many times has even people with good credit been on vacation or they're in the middle of some project and they go, oh, I forgot to pay the thing, right? Then they got a call, they get it expunged from their record so it doesn't hit their credit report. And companies are happy to do that if you're not a frequent offender. But that minimum automatic payment is so useful just to avoid this one stupid nuisance fee.
I'm a credit card points junkie person. And that's one of the standing operating procedures. When we get a new card and you log in for the first time in that account, the first thing that you have to do is set up minimum automatic payments from my bank account on the payment date. Obviously, you want to pay more than that. Obviously, you want to not carry a balance. But like you said, as long as you're paying that minimum, you're not going to run afoul of, because there's other things for being late too. The automatic default rate goes up and all the credit cards are linked now. So if you're late on one account, then all your other accounts think that you're late on them too, even though you're not. And so the interest rate rises on all of them. There's a lot of, secondary effects to having that late payment show up. So auto pay, that's a great idea.